What's up, guys? It's Chad with Living the Van Life. Can you guys believe that it is finally time? I'm assuming that all of you have seen the trailer that I just released on the channel here a few days ago, announcing the Return to the Arctic series, where I drive this Sprinter van all the way to the farthest north you can drive in all of North America in the dead of wintertime, through some of the most extreme winter conditions that you can find here on planet Earth. So those videos are going to start releasing here on the channel starting 1 week from today, November 25th. Mark your calendar. In the meantime, here in this video, I am going to give you guys an inside look at what it took to prepare myself, my gear, my Sprinter van, which is also my home on wheels, for this trip all the way into those crazy winter conditions. There's a lot that goes into the preparation, and that's what this video is all about. Also, make sure and stay tuned all the way to the end of this video, because I left you guys a little bit of a surprise. It's another sneak peek into the Arctic series with another little bit of a trailer action. Stay tuned to the end of the video. With that being said, let's jump into the shop here where we're going to start preparing the Sprinter van. So here we are in a shop doing some prep work to get the van ready for the trip up to the Arctic. One thing that is very important for going up into the Arctic with any vehicle is having some sort of block heater. Block heaters are important anytime the temperature starts dropping down below 0 degrees. I expect to see temperatures anywhere from minus 30 degrees Fahrenheit all the way down to minus 50 degrees Fahrenheit. The problem is that engine oil will turn into almost a solid molasses at those kind of temperatures, and it's extremely hard on motors, if not completely debilitates them. I did some extensive research for the Sprinter van, and it turns out that there are just simply no block heaters available for a Sprinter van. So I had to do some research to find the next best thing. So this is the oil pan heater that we're going to be using here for the Sprinter van. This is a Zero Start brand. It is a 500 watt, 120 volt, 4.2 amps. This is about the maximum size that will fit on one of these, and it basically just adheses onto the bottom of the oil pan here. It's not as ideal as being able to heat the block and the coolant of your engine. It's going to be the next best thing to keep the oil from solidifying in those extreme cold temperatures. I've got to take every measure I possibly can in keeping myself safe in these remote areas, and that involves making sure that my Sprinter van is going to start. I plan on spending most of my time completely off-grid, not around any sort of plug-in. So how am I going to make use of this oil pan heater to keep my van engine warm and ready to go for a start? And my goal is to install a 25-foot extension cord that's going to run all the way down the chassis of my Sprinter van, where I can plug it in at the back of my van and make use of my onboard lithium battery setup that is powered with a 3,000 volt amp inverter, completely off-grid, completely self-efficient, way out in these remote areas. So I've determined a location up front near the oil pan where I want to be able to plug the oil pan heater into the extension cord. I'm just going to route it along the chassis that is free and clear of any of the drivetrain components, as well as safely away from the exhaust. And that should be more than sufficient for this trip to the Arctic. Out the back here, that's going to leave us with about, maybe 4 or 5 feet of extra cord, which is enough to run up inside the back doors and into the outlets. Okay, that's the outlet. Completely self-efficient 120 volt power to be able to keep the engine oil of the Sprinter van nice and warm and fluid when we're up in some extreme temperatures. It's one of those extra added precautions that I wanted to put on the Sprinter van to help me get through this journey way up north. And with that, on a 25-foot cord right to my outlet here. The cord's gonna sit there. It's not ideal, but for this trip, it's gonna work. I'm gonna go ahead and start the prep process for getting this thing attached to the bottom of the oil pan. Beautiful. Nice and shiny, got all the dust, grime, oil residue off of there. Should be ready to stick this thing on here, start that process. I'll peel this off, plug it in for like 5 seconds, that activates the adhesive. Then I stick it to the bottom of the pan, and then I just do a bead of the silicone around the edge. Okay, got the oil pan heater adhesed to it. Everything is siliconed up, and the connection's all set. Everything looks to be solid. At this point, we're gonna go ahead and reinstall the skid plate system that was here. Okay, and we'll get this show on the road. After several evenings in the shop, working on the van, crossing all the T's, dotting all the I's, making sure that everything is good to go mechanically, I feel pretty confident that everything is under control here on the van and ready to make the trip up north. In these kinds of extreme conditions that we're heading into, there is nothing to be left undone mechanically. We got a lot of projects done, and I feel pretty confident that this thing is solid and ready to go. From here, we're going to start prepping the different gear and stuff that I'm going to be carrying with me up on the trip. So here I am at the back of the van, going through all of my supplies, and I'm only going to carry what I need specifically for the Arctic. The other thing that I'm going to do today is install this old school style drop light or work light. I've got a 100 watt incandescent bulb installed in it, and one thing that I learned from my trip up to Tuktoyaktuk in the Arctic Ocean last year is that one of the design flaws in my build of this van was the fact that I did not plan for any sort of heat source back here in the garage area. Now 99.9% of the time that's never really a factor, but with getting down into temperatures that approach 0 degrees, this area underneath my bed did reach down close to 0 degrees. That's not good for the lithium batteries. It's not good for any of the supplies that I carry back here. I stopped and I picked up this drop light. It actually kept this area at 50 to 60 degrees, which was more than efficient to get myself through the trip. So I'm gonna go ahead and install this work lamp here today. It'll run basically 24 hours a day and just keep this space nice and warm as I trek deep into some extreme winter conditions. I still have the original zip ties that I used a year ago, so I'm just going to go ahead and hook the lamp into that. It's this particular area that I need to be concerned about, making sure that these batteries stay above freezing. I'm just going to go ahead and get this cord ran over to my outlets on the other side of the van here, be done with this project. I went ahead and just ran the cord up underneath the bed, and I secured it with some zip ties. It runs over here to this side of the van where I actually have the outlets. Here is the cord, and we're just going to plug that right into there. The drop light is now on. getting powered off of the Victron. It's a 3000 volt amp inverter, which runs off of the Battleborn batteries, and that is going to heat this whole entire area here in the garage underneath the bed, keeping everything up and ready to go in some extreme cold temperatures. Now, using this as a heat source only works with incandescent light bulbs. All of these newer high technology LED light bulbs, they actually don't emit nearly the amount of heat that a typical old school traditional incandescent light bulb emits. As we know, light bulbs can be very delicate, so I'm bringing an extra 3 light bulbs with me in case something goes wrong with this one, as it rattles 2,567 miles all the way to the Arctic and back. So extra light bulbs going on board with me. One of my most favorite parts about the garage area here, the fact that these slide all the way out, provide great storage opportunities here in this space. Normally, if I wanted to store something back there, I'd have to be crawling back there to put it in there and to grab it out of there, and they're just super handy. So I'm gonna go ahead and just kind of clean everything out of the van here today and just do a reset with only the gear that I need to carry with me on this trip. Okay, so another fun experiment for this trip is to see if Starlink actually works as far north as we're going on this particular trip. One of the concerns of making a trek like this during such extreme winter conditions is the lack of communication. It's very remote out there. There's a lot of territory where I'll be traveling where there is no cell phone service, there's no people, there's no infrastructure in a lot of these areas. And when temperatures start dipping as low as -50 and perhaps even beyond, there is a lot of safety concern if anything were to go wrong. Having Starlink permanently mounted here inside the Sprinter van has been a nice addition for any time I'm off grid away from cell phone service. It is mounted up to the wall using a Star Mount Systems wall mount, basically making it a permanent installation here inside the Sprinter van. Also, the receiver is mounted up on top of the roof rack using a star mount as well. I'll take you guys up there and show you what that looks like. The Starlink receiver has been modified to fit in this Star Mount Systems flat mount. I can travel with it in motion. It's safe, it's secure, it's low profile, and we're gonna see if we can get high-speed internet all the way up into the Arctic. It doesn't mean that I can have the comforts of Netflix or Facebook or any of that BS while I'm out in these remote territories. More so, it is the safety standpoint. I can get up-to-date on-the-fly weather reports. If I need to do some last-minute navigation, I can check road conditions. If something were to go wrong either with the van or with myself, I can do FaceTime, I can do text messages. There's lots of different ways that I'll be able to get information in and out in these remote territories. So this is going to be quite an experiment to see how this really changes a trip like this. It is certainly an extra added layer of security and confidently being able to make a trek like this in a van. This right here is a lot of weight. Cast iron Dutch oven, cast iron skillet with a lid, 10-inch Dutch oven. That's just a lot of weight that I'm not going to be able to use because it is simply just too cold to be doing any campfire cooking while up in the Arctic. Stuff like this, I'm going to just go ahead and leave behind to reduce my weight, and it's also going to provide more storage opportunities right here in the back of the van. Another thing that I carried with me last year on my trip was road flares. These are packs of 3. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 of a dozen road flares here. I mean, we're covering a lot of territory on snow and ice and extreme temperatures, so a lot can go wrong on the road. It can be very dark, visibility can be poor, and you might need to track down attention if something goes down on the roads. for ease of accessibility, I'm gonna go ahead and put these in the side passenger door pocket so that I can get them easy and quickly if I need it in case of emergency. And here in this space, I've got just about every tool that I need to do any particular general job here on the Sprinter van. Very important in going into remote areas such as where I'm going. I always come prepared with these tools. In case of emergency, this is very important, especially for going up into the Arctic where batteries can die due to cold very easily. This is a NOCO jump box. It fits right in here. It's rechargeable via 12 volt USB. This one is the GB70. It's a 2000 amp. It's as simple as hooking this up to a battery and you can jump start the Sprinter van up to 6-7 times that I have on one single charge. Another thing that's going to be important in case I need to thaw anything out is a little torch head here. This will actually screw right onto the propane bottles that we use for camping. We can see this screws right onto here. I can actually have a torch, which could be very handy if I need to thaw something out in these crazy temperatures where I'm about to head to. All of that material gets stored in this drawer here. It's very convenient right here at the back of the van, just inside this space here. They are these storage boxes that are actually pretty darn handy and stackable. And I carry all of my camera equipment, stuff like my tripods. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, and I can fit the additional tripod that's holding up the camera in here as well. And they happen to fit perfectly here on these particular slide outs that I've got. Over here, I've got all of my bigger camera lenses here, across here, different camera equipment. You've got these slide-in dividers, which really help with organizing things. Everything just fits in here nicely inside these Shuckson van slide outs. And then I can slide this stuff to the back. Everything's stored in there nicely towards the back. And I've got all of this space that I can keep stacking other Cydio crates in here. Like this here, I've got my DeWalt toolkits here, DeWalt drill, DeWalt impact gun. Everything is cordless, powered by battery, drill bits, tools. Again, that is a Cydio crate. And then we can stack another one on here. Folding table, some extra shelter, DeWalt cordless vacuum. Again, everything slides back in there nice and organized. Also back here on the slide out, I'm going to put the Instant Pot. Very handy and important tool. In my refrigerator, I have a number of different meals that I have pre-prepped. I will use the Instant Pot in steam mode with a pot and pot method to reheat those meals. And that's going to be a quick and simple and efficient way of heating up and doing meals while on a trek like this up into the Arctic. And then, of course, in case of those emergencies, we never know, but the luggable loo, handy tool, 5-gallon bucket, removable bags, a toilet seat, do your business in here, pull the bag out and dispose of it properly. Now, another important thing to consider when making a trek like this is any sort of recovery gear. Here in what I call my shed out back, because that's the garage, so this is the shed, I've got all of my recovery gear. Here in this bag right here, I have a full master pull kit. It's got winch extension lines, it's got other tow straps, it's got a kinetic recovery rope, which is hugely important if I slide off the road, get stuck in a snowdrift, whether I am requiring the assistance of somebody else to help me get me unstuck or I'm doing a self-recovery. Everything I need is right here. Extra tow straps. These come in handy for all sorts of different things. My small little electric chainsaw, DeWalt, it stores in nice here. All the different various fluids that I've got. So this box right here comes in very handy for all of that type of gear here at the back of the van. So also with going along and keeping the garage at a good temperature for all of my supplies back here, as well as the cab area up above the bed, one thing that I learned on my last trip to the Arctic was the fact that these door seals in the back of these Sprinter vans do not do their job well enough to keep all of the cold air out. Went and found the heaviest sleeping bags that I could possibly find. Open it up. Then I'm going to shove the excess underneath the bed here. Now I've just taken the excess amount of sleeping bag material and tucked it up flat underneath the bed here. The bed still tucks in nicely. And now we can see we have a nice thick insulated cover over this space here. And it's going to protect it from all of that cold air seeping through as I drive. And of course, as I need to access that space, I can just flip this up here, and then I've got access to all of my goods thanks to the slide out trays, tools, and other equipment that I have stored here in the garage. Any bit of extra insulation on this project goes a long ways. So another thing that I found very important in making this trip last year was being able to monitor the different various temperatures around the van. I like to know what the temperature is inside my living space where I'm going to be living and sleeping while I travel. I also like to know what the outdoor temperature is, and I also like to know what the temperature is here in the garage so that I can know and understand that my batteries are going to be fully functional throughout my entire trip. I wanted to be able to monitor all of these temperatures from my driver's seat or from my living space as I traveled and lived on this trek up through the Arctic. So I got on Amazon and I found a wireless temperature thermometer, and from this base unit here I can place different sensors around the van. So I've got one sensor placed up here on the underside of the bed that's going to monitor the temperature of the garage space, a sensor placed on the outside of the van that is going to monitor my outside temperatures, and then this unit right here, it's magnetic, so I can take it with me up to the driver's seat. So as I'm trekking down the highway all day long, I can make sure all temperatures are doing well and right where I want them to be, especially here in the garage. That just helps me understand that everything is going to be functioning with the battery system safely and make sure that the light is on, etc. Now, one of my favorite aspects to this van build is having the bed right here and these doors wide open. And of course, anytime these doors open, all of the heat that is built up inside the nice insulated living portion of the van quickly escapes. And the other thing is any sort of weather that is falling down, rain, snow, ice, dust, etc., can just blow right in here all over my bed. That is where this partition right here comes into play. Essentially it unfolds like this, and as you can tell, they're all magnetic, and it clips right here to the metal frame of the door. This is insulated, and this outside part is waterproof. Just quickly and easily, we've got ourselves a nice partition here at the back of the van. Now I can get in and out of here in these extreme winter conditions and be able to minimize the amount of heat loss that escapes out of a giant hole like that anytime I need to access the back when I'm up north. Now, last year on my trek north, this whole partition system that I just set up here worked so well that I was actually getting ice built up on the inside of these windows in my door panels here. Not that that's a good thing, but that just goes to show you how much this partition is holding the warm air in the living space where it actually matters, and the fact that there is so much cold trying to come in that normally would be escaping into the living space as I traveled. So this right here, this setup for my Sprinter van has been key, and I'm depending on it for this particular trek north. Windshield wiper fluid, one of the most important defenses to keeping your windshield de-iced. The windshield wiper fluid that we can buy down here in the States in the lower 48 does not compare to anything that you need to defend yourself from the ice and those extreme temperatures up top. So last year what I ended up doing was buying fluid up in Canada where they actually sell the heavy duty stuff that is meant to attack that stuff up there. I have a few gallons left over from the last trip. I'm going to go ahead and add it now so that I'm prepared. Then when I'm up there, I'll stop at a store and stock up on a couple extra gallons to carry with me, because you do go through it quite extensively on those long trips. This stuff is good down to minus 49 degrees Celsius, and it's an ice defense right here. While we're on the subject of windshield wiper fluid, it's also important to consider taking an extra set of wipers with you on the road. When your windshield starts freezing up and you experience these cold temperatures, you never know when you could break a windshield wiper. And if you are without a windshield wiper in a remote area, it could be hundreds of miles before you can get your hands on another one. And especially with these newer late model Mercedes Sprinter vans, these are only available at the dealership. So finding a dealership in the north of Alaska is going to be impossible. So I'm carrying an extra set with me in the back of the van just in case of an emergency. Now let's talk about the front of the Sprinter van here. Of course, this is where all of the cooling for the engine happens. However, last year, when the temperature started dropping to minus 35, minus 40 degrees, and I was flying down the highway at 50, 60, 70 miles an hour, at those temperatures and at those speeds, it washes all of the heat from the engine away, and my engine wasn't able to keep up with maintaining proper operating temperatures. My transmission temperatures were too low. My engine oil temperatures were too low, and it even went as far as the heat coming from my dash to heat my driving space was not functioning properly, and it actually started to fail the diesel exhaust fluid system, which is responsible for maintaining the emissions and keeping this thing running. It popped up on my dash saying that I was going into emergency operation mode and I was in remote territory. And if you guys remember that, I had to make a bit of an emergency repair and adjustment to the van at a truck stop when it was minus 26 degrees. It becomes too overpowering for the engine to actually keep up and build enough heat to operate properly. So I've spent the last hour or so shoving cardboard into my grill to block that cold air and allow the Sprinter van to actually get up to proper operating temperatures. What I'm doing this year to prepare for that is I'm going to build my own custom winter front that will slide in here and be a little bit more reliable than just some cardboard. Normally, if you've got a Chevy or a Ford or a Dodge or any of the common pickup trucks that we usually find up in Alaska or north of Canada, they actually sell and have available specifically manufactured winter fronts that fit those vehicles. However, in my research over the last few months, looking high and low on the internet, I wasn't able to find anything already pre-manufactured for my particular Sprinter van model. Therefore, I was left to make something custom, which is fine. That makes it kind of fun, and I can tailor it exactly how I need it. So I'm going to show you guys what I've done to make that work so that we can make this trek up, and the old Sprinter is going to run at its optimal operating temperatures even in these cold, crazy conditions. So essentially what I've got here is I've got a 1/16 inch thick sheet of neoprene rubber that I just went down to the hardware store and picked up. The nice thing about it is that it's manageable, it's flexible. I can kind of stretch it around the radiator here, pull it tight where I need to. And essentially I'm going to tuck it up under here. There's a few knobs where the hood sit down onto, so I'm going to trim some holes so that that fits down around it. And then as the hood is down shut over the top of it, it's going to hold this makeshift winter front in place. So I've done a little bit of mocking up already and trimming to get it to fit around this area here. As you can see, I've tucked it back behind the bull bar of my off-road bumper. Once I get it in place, I'll trim some holes here where the wiring will come through for my Baja design lights. So I'll still have use of them, and they'll help keep this whole thing into position. So I'm gonna work on that project here and get that all set up, and I'll show you guys how things are going as I work through this project. I have marked here where the latch of the hood is going to come down. I'm going to use an X-Acto knife and see if I can't cut this circle out. That'll stretch up over that. Gonna allow the hood to latch down. I've got a few more points that I need to cut out here in order to make all this fit. I'm gonna keep cutting. Okay, so I've got the top cut into place here. Then also on each side there are these bump stops where the hood comes down and sits on top of. I've cut holes around it. You can see there's another one here. So now as the hood comes down, latches on top, this whole rubber piece here will be secure and everything will drape down. Then I will work in some zip tie points down below here that will keep the bottom of it safe and secure to the bottom of the bumper. And we're gonna have ourselves a decent little winter front here, homemade for the Arctic trip. At this point I want to do just a test fit. Make sure the hood's gonna close nicely here. Just like that. Things fit fairly decently around there. That is safe and secure and not going anywhere. Okay, so far I am happy with the fit of this rubber in this particular space. I think one thing I'd like to do is have some zip tie points here and here on each side to where I can put a zip tie on and then cinch down on that zip tie and put some downward pressure. That way it keeps everything nice and tight. Okay, one final mock-up. I want to make sure there is no possible issues before heading up. Okay, I'm going to grab a couple zip ties, see how this system is going to work here. Some downward pressure holding things nice and tightly into everything, just like that. That tightens things up nicely, and then I can snip that zip tie off. Beautiful. That is working out perfectly, exactly the way I planned it. I also did cut some holes in here right about where the back of the Baja Design lights will plug in so that I can still have use of these off-road lights. It also tucks back in here behind the winch, so I still have use of my winch. And voila, we've got ourselves a nice secure winter front for the front of the Sprinter van. This is going to be highly important for keeping this thing at proper operating temperatures and some extremely cold temps way up north. Now, one thing to note about this is that I will not deploy this winter front until the temperatures start dropping well below freezing and approaching 0 degrees and beyond. So that's why it was important for me to develop something that was easily deployable in some inclement conditions. All of the I's are dotted, all of the T's are crossed, and it's time to make the trek all the way into the far north in these crazy winter conditions. November 25th, 2023, 1 week from the release of this video, we get to start watching this Return to the Arctic series. With that being said, as I promised, here is a quick look at another teaser trailer of this Arctic series. You can never have too much information about where you are, where you're going, and how long you've got till you get there. If something were to go wrong, I want to know exactly how far I am from any sort of civilization. Having that knowledge is key to making treks out here through remote areas and always knowing where you're at. Finally made it into the Yukon. 1,345 miles into the trip. To reach Deadhorse is 1,350. After driving for 36 hours over 5 days, 1,670 miles since I left Bellingham, Washington. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to Alaska. The visibility right now is damn near down to 0. This is absolutely insane. We'll see you guys next week as this journey begins to unfold. Peace out. Keep on trucking.